It's so beautiful that nature just has everything that our body needs. Like whenever I hear things like this, I'm like, in France, in South America, all these plants and barks and all these things that have been around for thousands and thousands of years that obviously people are now hearing about again, but they've been around for so long.
They've been around. And, it's more about just kind of discovering how people in certain areas use them. Like we were in the Galapagos recently, and in the high altitude, they chew on cocoa leaves. Like, I think that's what cocaine comes from.
Oh, really?
And they were like, oh, miss, if you're feeling a little lightheaded, you can chew on this. And I was like, no, I'm okay. But I said to my husband, I was like, what's fascinating is that this plant naturally grew in a place where people would get altitude sickness. Or like this fern from South America, polypodium, it grew at the equator. Like it's really beautiful, right?
It is. Even if you think about Indian culture and the spices and the heat that is there, whether it's turmeric you were mentioning.
Yes, or ginger, like all of these things.
Yeah, they exist in the place that they need to. I even remember when I would go in forest walks with my family and you'd get stung by something, there was this thing called dock leaves that used to live next to it.
Yes.
And it's like there would literally be the weed that can harm you and the plant that can heal you next to it.
Next to each other.
And I'm like, it's beautiful. Yes. It just reminded me of that. I was like,
it is beautiful.
Nature never fails to amaze me every single day, especially when I hear things like this. And it also reminds me that we don't actually need so much more than what nature provides. You just have to learn the qualities of the food that you're eating. Like who knew that? Yes, we knew that blueberries had antioxidants.
Right.
But if you take time to learn about each ingredient that you're eating, you'll notice what defense it's creating for you in your body, what it's healing in your body.
Yes. And I think that's a really good point, because the things I recommend to one patient based on what they need to heal, right, is different from somebody else. So, for example, if somebody comes in and they have trouble managing their sugar, well, I'm going to recommend a lot of cinnamon because we know that cinnamon is really good for blood sugar control. But if they have hormonal issues, maybe I'm going to recommend spearmint tea. Right. And if they're really sun sensitive, maybe this polypodium, right? So I do think there are some really good general guidelines. Yeah. But then if you're trying to use food as medicine, treat the thing that you need to treat, right? Because I think a lot of times the mistake that a lot of people make is just they're kind of listening to what somebody else is using, and it may not be ideal.
No, exactly. And I think that's a responsibility that we have to take ourselves to learn our body and then learn the foods that we're putting into our body and that relationship that we have between the two. I want to go on to Botox because obviously living in LA, Botox all day, every day. Tell me what it really does and why it's seen as a preventative.
Okay, so Botox is a tiny little purified protein that we take out of a bacteria. Okay. And that bacteria is the same bacteria that causes botulism. Yes. Right? Which is why people are so afraid of it, as they should be, because nobody wants to inject botulism,
It's a neurotoxin, right?
Yes, it's a neurotoxin. But if you take this little purified protein out and you put it specifically into a muscle that is creating a wrinkle, it will temporarily decrease the activity of that muscle. So for example, if you're always frowning and you've got these lines, well, if I put a little bit of Botox into the, we call it the belly of the muscle, right there, what it will do is it will kind of weaken the action of that muscle so that it's not strong enough to make the lines anymore. Oh. And so that's really what Botox is doing. It lasts for 3 to 6 months. So, the problem with Botox and the reason you're always hearing about it is it's not like a facelift where somebody goes once and they're done, right? People are going in several times a year to their dermatologist to get this done. And there is evidence that if you stop the excess movement of the muscle, then you won't get those etched wrinkle lines. Right. So it's preventative just because if you can get it before you have wrinkles, then you don't make the wrinkles the same way.